Cancer, your 15-year emotional debt is paid. The 9th of September, 2025. Your era of self-redefinition begins now. Cancer, you've been on a long journey. The past 15 years weren't just a series of challenges. They were a profound karmic cycle etched into your soul's birth chart. You were often misunderstood, your genuine emotions dismissed, and often left behind after pouring your heart out. But the truth is, you weren't being punished. You were being trained. A silent but deep training to learn how to protect your heart, how to hold on to your gentle nature, even when no one else believed in it anymore. And now, the 9th of September, 2025, is not just a date on the calendar, but a portal of karmic transformation that opens with the powerful shifts of Saturn and Pluto, two planets deeply tied to karma, power, and rebirth. You are about to enter a new era, not one of negative revenge, but a time where you reclaim all that belongs to you. Your energy, your love, your inner peace, and the strength that has been hidden for too long. Cancer, you walked through 15 years, not just with endurance, but with a heart that never stopped loving. You loved unconditionally, striving to protect your family, your home, and your closest relationships, as if your life depended on it. You forgave while still hurting, and held on to people who were ready to leave, simply because you didn't want anyone to feel lost or uncherished in your embrace. But through all of that, did anyone truly see and cherish you? I see in your birth chart where Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune shape a long karmic cycle. You've had to learn how to hold your soul's light, even when surrounded by darkness. You didn't live like others. You existed like a flame burning quietly in the night, strong and silent. You once asked, "Why do I have to endure so much?" But the truth is, no one is mistakenly chosen for such a path. Only the strongest souls are given the hardest tests. And you, Cancer, you walk through them not to prove anything to the world, but to become the purest version of yourself. You learn that true love is not where you lose yourself trying to fit into someone else's mold. True love is where you learn to leave when you're no longer respected and stay with yourself when no one else does. The 9th of September, 2025, is not a gift. It is confirmation. It is the whisper of the universe. You have paid your debt. From now on, you no longer need to shrink so someone else can shine. You no longer have to push yourself just to survive. You don't have to do anything more to be worthy, because you are already the light. And that light, Cancer, it's time for it to bloom. Cancer, the 9th of September, 2025, is not just a milestone, but is the gentle closing of a karmic gate to open a completely new journey for you. There are no bells ringing, no blazing lights, but deep in your soul, you know something has been lifted. Pluto steps back, Saturn softens, and you, Cancer, step out of a long, challenging cycle with a peace you've never known before. You no longer crave control or need to prove anything. You no longer seek apologies, nor long for recognition, because you understand strength is not in defeating others. It is in maintaining peace within your heart. You don't need revenge. You don't need to shout. Your luminous presence, silent, steady, and whole, is already the strongest answer. Your gentleness is no longer a weakness. It is the evidence of a soul that has lived, been shattered, and healed. From a place once filled with cracks, light begins to radiate, gentle yet unextinguishable. And from here, the journey of rebirth begins. Not to become someone else, but to return and live truly, deeply, fully as yourself. Cancer, there was a time in your life when love came not as a reward, but as an unfinished dream. You loved with everything you had, no calculations, nothing held back, and you asked for nothing more than a heart that could listen. But then, over time, you realized loving like that left you drained. You once believed if you loved enough, were patient enough, compassionate enough, the other person would change, would stay, would see you. But strangely, the deeper you loved, the lonelier you felt, because in that quiet sacrifice, you slowly lost yourself, little by little, until one day you no longer recognized the person in the mirror. Maybe you collapsed, still holding onto your shattered heart. Maybe you looked into someone's eyes, someone you thought was your destiny, and suddenly realized they were no longer there. Maybe you cried alone at night, placed your hand on your chest, and asked, "Where did I go wrong?" But Cancer, you were never wrong. You simply loved with the heart of an ancient soul, where love is not a transaction, but a devotion. And you only forgot one thing. That love, to be healthy, must begin within. In astrology, you are the zodiac sign representing family, home, and roots. That doesn't make you small. It makes you the most profound, the one who carries healing and the ability to create safety. But because of that, you often fall into the sweet trap of healing and holding on. You love as if you were born to be a sanctuary, to protect others, and you forget, not everyone wants to be healed. Not everyone wants to change. Not everyone has the courage to step into the depths of your unconditional love. And in those moments, you are left behind, not because you're unworthy, but because your love and care are too strong, and it made them feel not enough or overwhelmed. But you know what? All those heartbreaks, the times you weren't loved back, the silent breakups, were messages from the universe. Cancer, you are not ready for a healthy love because you haven't yet learned to love and protect your own heart first. And then, as you enter September 2025, where the moon and sun form a soft yet deep alignment, something begins to change. Not on the outside, but within you. You wake up one morning, see sunlight streaming through the curtains, and instead of thinking about someone else, you think about yourself. No longer waiting for a message from that familiar number. No longer screaming in silence, "Please remember me." No longer asking, "Am I worthy of love?" Because finally, you remember who you are. Cancer, your love is no longer about chasing. It's no longer a silent cry in your soul saying, "Please choose me, stay with me," because you understand the one who must choose you first is yourself. You begin to realize love is not something to trade for someone's presence. Love is not a reward for silent sacrifices. Love is the result of full presence. And when you are present within yourself, when you pause, take a deep breath, and look at the healed fragments of your heart, you no longer need anyone to complete you. There is no void that needs to be filled. There are only spaces within you that need to be loved more gently. And you, dear Cancer, have begun to do that naturally. You've started loving yourself again through small acts. A warm cup of tea after work, an old song that brings back beautiful memories, an afternoon walk without checking your phone, a letter you write to yourself, not to judge, but to embrace. You may be wondering, how do you know you've entered the healing phase? Not because you laugh more, but because sadness no longer makes you feel lost. You're no longer afraid of being alone. You're no longer afraid of losing someone. And the most magical thing is, you no longer need to control anything, because you believe that true love, if meant for you, will find its way back without you chasing it. And if it doesn't return, you'll still be okay. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become warm enough for yourself. Cancer, can you see? People are looking at you differently now. Not because you've become more beautiful, not because you're trying to impress, but because your energy now no longer trembles. It's steady, gentle, and shines effortlessly. Maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's an old friend, or even a glance from a stranger in a crowded cafe. You're not trying to attract, yet that very non-attraction becomes the most attractive thing. Because the moment you stop wanting to be loved is the moment you become impossible not to love. Because you love without conditions. You love without needing promises. You love not to be loved back, but because your heart was born to love. Cancer, be honest now. Are you starting to look at yourself with fresh eyes? Have you stopped blaming yourself for past mistakes? Are you beginning to smile at yourself in the mirror without needing anyone else around? If the answer is yes, then congratulations. You are loving yourself again, quietly, deeply, and nothing is more sacred than that. Cancer, there's a truth that is hard to accept, yet deeply liberating. Not everyone is capable of loving you the right way, not because you're unworthy, but because your love extends beyond their comfort zone. You love with the heart of a soul that has lived many lifetimes, a soul that remembers the pain of the world, yet still chooses compassion. You love with everything and hope that others will understand. But the truth is, not everyone dwells in the same emotional depth as you. Not everyone is ready to stand still before a mirror and look into themselves the way you bravely have. You love like the ocean. They only know how to wade in the shallows. And when they leave, you think, maybe I'm too deep, too heavy, maybe I love the wrong way. But no, dear Cancer, you just love too truthfully, and not everyone can bear that truth. And then, throughout the healing process, you realize something profoundly important. Love is not something you search for outside. It is something you awaken from within. You stop asking, when will I meet the right person? When will the old one come back? When will someone love me enough? And instead you ask, have I loved myself the way I once loved them? Have I listened to my body? Am I living according to my true values? Because you understand, true love doesn't come to fill a void. It comes when you are no longer empty. And if it hasn't come yet, that doesn't mean you're alone. It only means the universe is waiting for you to fill yourself with your own light first. And miraculously, you no longer feel lonely. Instead, you feel alone, but not the kind of alone from the past. No more feeling abandoned. No more fearing sunsets. No more restless nights over an unanswered message. Now you know, if someone walks beside you, wonderful. If not, you'll still keep walking, because your life didn't begin with them, and it won't end because of them either. Cancer, you may still miss someone. You may still cry listening to an old song, but you will no longer allow yourself to go back to a version that once forgot about you. You understand that loving is not forgetting yourself for someone else. It's remembering yourself while still reaching out to the world. Cancer, the greatest love doesn't come from someone who enters your life with the promise, I'll never leave. The greatest love is when you stay with yourself, even when the whole world walks away. You no longer need validation from someone's gaze. No longer need sweet words, fleeting hugs, or half-hearted conversations, because you realize truth doesn't need embellishment and love doesn't need justification. You know who's genuine by how they show up, and you also know who's unworthy, not because they're bad, but because they're not yet ready to love someone who's grown from within. Healing doesn't make you arrogant. On the contrary, it makes you softer, but no longer easily broken. You can say no without feeling guilty. You can let go of a beautiful love if it keeps you awake at night. You can love someone deeply, but still choose yourself if they're no longer your place of peace. Love now is no longer a promise, no longer a dream of the future, no longer an us to escape loneliness. Love now is an evening you cook for yourself, as if it's the first date. A morning you wake up without feeling a void in your chest. A Sunday you sit by the window reading a book and feel peace spread without anyone beside you. And when you live like that, love like that, someone will enter your life not to make you happy, but to share the happiness you already have. Cancer, if you're hearing these words, then please believe your heart has matured. It has been broken, but never hardened. It has been hurt, but never frozen. It still beats, still aches, still longs for love. But now it has boundaries. It has clarity, it has mindfulness, and it has a steady gentleness, one that nothing can shake. Let this part end with an invitation. If you've ever thought you had to trade yourself to be loved, then from today, stop. Love like someone who has walked through fire and understands that the light within you doesn't need to be lit by anyone else. You are already the candle. You are already the home. And the love you seek will come when you stop searching and start living. Cancer, what stage are you at in your journey of loving yourself? Can you sit still with your heart and not feel empty? Share with me, because perhaps your story will be the light for another Cancer out there in need. Love is a miracle, but a greater miracle is when you learn how to heal your own heart. And when you are whole, when you walk with a complete heart, everything else, from career, finances to destiny, will begin to shift in a completely new direction. And that is exactly what is about to happen to you, Cancer. Maybe you once thought that you weren't cut out for competition, for the harsh environments where people are defined by titles, status, or salary. Maybe you felt out of place. In a world where human worth is measured by productivity and kindness is always mistaken for weakness. But you still tried. You once worked not because you loved that job, but because you needed stability, needed a safe place, needed to prove to your family, to society, and sometimes to yourself that you too could succeed. You once swallowed tears, smiled in the office, nodded at things that went against your intuition just to keep the peace. You once had brilliant creative ideas, but had to suppress them because someone said, "It's not realistic." You once walked into a room with your heart wide open but had to leave in silence because you were too different. Cancer, you weren't wrong. You were never wrong. You were simply living in a world that hasn't yet learned to respect the softness of intelligence. That world hasn't understood that there are people who don't need to climb to be seen because their quiet presence already transforms everything around them. You are one of those people, a person who works not to win, but to connect, to nurture, and to create profound value beyond timesheets. And that's why, for the past 15 years, your career may not have followed the usual path. Maybe you've changed jobs many times. Maybe you've been misunderstood, excluded from promotions just because you weren't the leader type. Maybe you've been underestimated just because you don't shout about what you do. But the miracle is, you stayed not just to survive, but because your soul knew something greater was waiting behind those challenges. And then, when the 9th of September, 2025 comes, a silent but powerful shift begins. Pluto, the planet of power and rebirth, moves away from its heavy influence. Saturn, the planet of structure and limits, begins to make way for expansive energy. You suddenly look back at everything that once hurt in your work and see they no longer sting. You no longer want to prove. You no longer need to fight. You no longer chase goals others set for you, because finally, you realize career is not where you try to survive each day. It is the space where you fulfill your soul's mission. Cancer, you've done so well. Even if no one acknowledges it, no one gives you a trophy, no one applauds, you know it because you went to work every day with all your heart. And that heart, not trained in university, not measured by KPIs, not ranked on any leaderboard, is the one thing that makes others feel safe around you. You are the colleague who quietly notices who's feeling down. The one who texts first, "Are you okay?" The one who stays late just to help someone finish their work. The one who creates space for others to breathe, but never asks for the same in return. And because you do things with your heart, there are times you feel drained. You ask yourself, does anyone understand? Does anyone see? Does anyone truly appreciate it? And when no one answers, you begin to question your own worth. But not because you're weak, but because you're too sincere in a world that's rushing. Cancer, do you know your value doesn't lie in how much others pay for your effort? Your value lies in the fact that you've kept your heart no matter how many people told you to let go. Now, as you step beyond the karmic phase, everything inside you begins to shift. It's no longer, "I have to do this to be accepted." It's, "I choose this because it is the continuation of my soul." You begin to clearly distinguish the job that exhausts you because you're playing a role and the mission that tires you, but brings meaning every single day. A mission isn't always grand. Sometimes it's listening to someone with your whole soul. It's writing a heartfelt message. It's creating space where others feel accepted and nurtured. You don't need to be a CEO, don't need to start a business, don't need hundreds of thousands of followers to live your mission. You just need to live in alignment with your frequency, because a soul vibrating in alignment with its own truth naturally creates impact. No need to shout, no need to prove. You are a healer by the way you live. You don't try to be, you are. And when you begin to live from that place, everything starts to change. New soul companions begin to appear. Aligned collaborations arrive effortlessly. Opportunities you don't need to chase begin to open up. Not because you run after them, but because you begin to attract them. Cancer, one of the most beautiful things you're learning right now is, I don't need to suffer in order to succeed. You are releasing the old belief that work must be hard, heavy, or full of sacrifice to have value. Now you understand work should nourish you, inspire you, and help you reach the highest part of your soul. It doesn't shrink you, it expands you. It doesn't drain you, it lets you live truthfully. And when you begin to live and work from that place, you are no longer just an employee. You become someone who carries light. So what's changing? Starting this September, your career enters a whole new phase where everything you do is infused with soul. You may begin a personal project, perhaps related to community building, nurturing children, or creating cozy spaces. You may return to an old passion that was once set aside because of life, perhaps in art, cooking, or home decor. Or you may simply continue your current job, but with a completely renewed energy, because what truly changes isn't the job, it's you. You no longer work out of fear, you work from calling. You no longer seek external validation, you see yourself, and that is enough. Cancer, you don't just have a job, you have a current. And when you let that current guide you, without rushing, without force, you'll find yourself entering completely different spaces. Spaces of inner freedom, spaces of soulful careers, spaces of creativity born from intuition. Cancer, do you feel your professional calling shifting? Have you ever been tired at work but kept going because of some deeper reason? Share your story, because maybe what you say could become a guiding light for someone else. And when your heart is healed, when you enter your career as a mission, then what awaits you next is a shift in your relationship with prosperity. No longer money for survival, but spiritual abundance reflected in the material. And that is what you will deeply feel in the next part. Cancer, when someone mentions money, do you feel a slight tightening inside? Maybe you've thought you're not good with money. Maybe you've been hurt because of money. Or maybe you once handed over your entire financial power to someone else because you believed that was love. But one day you wake up and feel, I want to reclaim ownership of my life. Not because you're greedy, not because you've changed, but because you're beginning to remember money is not something foreign. It's simply a form of energy. And energy always reflects how you treat yourself. You are being forced to face your belief system about value. And that's not just about money, it's about self-worth. Are you undervaluing your talents? Are you accepting less because you're afraid of rejection? Are you staying in relationships that drain you just for financial convenience, out of fear of insecurity? Cancer. I've seen so many of you give so much, not because you're foolish, not because you're naive, but because you think love is unconditional and money is conditional. So if I accept money, love will no longer be pure. But you know what? That's a trap. A very subtle trap that hearts like yours, hearts that love fully, easily fall into. Money doesn't taint love. Money doesn't make you less spiritual. Money is how the material world responds to the energy you've given. It's a silent conversation between the universe and your self-esteem. And when you devalue yourself, when you keep accepting less thinking, I don't need much, the universe doesn't punish you, but it will honor your choice. Cancer. You don't have to sacrifice your worth to be loved. You don't have to live so minimally that your light dims. You can be both abundant and profound. You can be both peaceful and successful. You can both heal others and receive fully. There's no contradiction here. You're simply learning to value yourself by the light you carry. And when you do that, money will find you like an old friend once lost. Prosperity isn't something you have to chase. It's something you attract. It doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from believing you are worth more. You don't need to speed up. You just need to pause and ask yourself, does the value I'm receiving reflect the value I'm living? If the answer is not yet, don't rush to blame the world. Turn inward and realign your inner frequency. You know what? Prosperity isn't just the amount of money in your account. It's the feeling of being able to take a deep breath and not worry. It's when you buy a good meal, not because you deserve a reward, but because you know you're worthy of self-care. It's when you no longer feel guilty saying, "My service fee, island." It's when you no longer shy away from receiving money because you know you've offered real value. Cancer, be honest. Have you ever felt awkward talking about money? Ever felt embarrassed to name your price? Ever laughed it off and said, "It's okay as long as you're happy," even though deep down you knew you were being undervalued? If yes, then it's not your fault. It's because growing up you were taught giving is good, receiving is greedy. Work from the heart, not for money. But were you ever taught that money is also a part of love because it nourishes, because it allows you to care for yourself, because it gives you freedom, and most of all, because it gives you the ability to love others without dependency? Cancer, it's time for you to enter a new relationship with money, not a relationship of need, have, hold, lose, but a relationship of respect. You respect your effort. You respect your time. You respect your energy. And then the universe will respect you. Cancer. Are you feeling more worthy than ever? Are you starting to revalue yourself not just by knowledge but by the light you carry? Share your feelings. Perhaps your story will inspire someone who's just beginning. And then, when you've healed your heart, when you live in alignment with your soul mission, and when you begin to receive prosperity as a sacred resonance from within, then the next step, Cancer, is a deep spiritual awakening where you no longer need to be seen but can never be ignored. Be ready. because what comes next will bring you back to the deepest place, your spiritual self. Cancer, there is a very strange moment in a soul's journey of growth. It's not the moment you win, not when someone apologizes to you, not when you get promoted or praised, but when you sit alone in silence and realize you no longer need to be recognized, no longer needing to be understood, no longer needing to be seen, no longer needing anyone to stay to validate your worth, because you know your very presence, pure, sincere, needing no proof, is already light. And light doesn't need permission to shine. The layers of illusion, the misconceptions, the old roles you once wore begin to fall away. You no longer have to force yourself to be positive, no longer have to pretend not to hurt, no longer need to appear strong, just so others think you're okay. You begin to allow yourself to truly show up, soft when needed, silent when tired, radiant when healing is enough. Cancer. Maybe you once thought that spiritual awakening was when you understood all the laws of the universe, when you could meditate for hours, read hundreds of books, listen to messages from other dimensions. But do you know something? The real awakening comes when you begin to live in alignment with your soul, not by doctrine, not by trying to be advanced, not by becoming more spiritual. Simply this: you hear the voice within and you trust it. You slow down and find you're not being left behind. You choose silence and the world listens. You don't need to try to shine anymore because you already are light. Not the dazzling kind like fireworks, but the gentle glow of a candle burning quietly for years in the darkness, never extinguished. And now, as karma dissolves, that candle is allowed to burn brightly, not for anyone, but for yourself. Cancer. The world doesn't need you to do anything more to be worthy. Just stay true to who you are. You don't need to be special. You don't need to be useful. You don't need to be better. Just live your truth, and that is enough. Enough to inspire, enough to heal, enough to be a refuge for others, even when you never try to be. Are you seeking stillness? Do you feel deep inside that something sacred is calling you? A sound without words, a feeling without definition, a vague longing as if you are being called home to your spiritual dwelling. If you feel that, then congratulations, you are not lost. You are returning to the purest state of your soul, where you no longer need to run, no longer need to demand, no longer need to cling, only to be with awareness, wholeness, and completeness. Cancer, you no longer need anyone to see you, not because you don't crave connection, but because you no longer depend on others' gaze to exist. And do you know something? That very moment, when you no longer need to be seen, is when the whole world can't take its eyes off you. Because you are no longer someone trying to shine. You are the light. No performance needed. No need to be chosen. Just be. Cancer. What part of you is being called home? Are you still wearing a mask out of fear of being unacceptable? Or have you begun to slow down and found yourself safe in your own truth? Share it. Who knows? Your stillness might be the awakening bell for someone else. And when you have awakened, not through logic, but through presence, when you no longer need to be seen to still live your light, then Cancer, you are ready to integrate it all. Love, career, money, spirit, into one unified flow. That is the moment you turn inner truth into outer reality. And I'll walk with you in the next part of this journey. Dear Cancer, if you've made it to this very moment, then perhaps your soul already knows. You haven't been on the wrong path. You've just been on a longer one, a quieter one, a deeper one. And today is the day you are affirmed, not by me, not by anyone outside, but by the universe. When you cross the gate of the 9th of September, 2025, you're not stepping into random luck. You're stepping into a phase that only opens when your soul is ready. You have survived. You kept your promise to yourself that even if everything fell apart, you would not lose your heart, would not lose your capacity for love and care. You forgave not because they deserved it, but because you deserved freedom from the burden of the past. You chose love, compassion, patience, even when the world chose only judgment. And now, this rebirth is not a reward. It is an affirmation, a whisper from the universe. You have returned. Cancer, have you ever dreamed of this? A life no longer about enduring, no longer about walking burdened down a path drawn by others, no longer about striving to be chosen, to be seen, to be loved, but a life of full presence. You are there, whole, complete, and unapologetic for being you. You breathe, and the world shifts to your gentle frequency. You walk, not fast, not slow, but in rhythm with your soul. And at that very moment, you don't have to do anything, and everything begins to find you. Opportunities, love, finances, peace, not because you chase them, but because you've become the magnet. Cancer, do you feel something awakening within you? A stillness that isn't sadness but strength? A light that isn't blinding but unextinguishable? A faith without reason, but you know it's there, in your chest, like a lighthouse for the rest of your life? If so, then you are ready. No further preparation needed. No one's permission required. No validation needed. Because your very existence is the confirmation. Have you ever dreamed of this? Cancer? A life that's no longer about surviving, but about being fully present every second, every minute, every day. If your heart is nodding, then perhaps your soul has come home. Share with me in the comments what makes you feel ready to step into this new era. A letting go, a glance from someone, or just the silence where you find peace inside your own soul's home. Who knows? What you share might be the light for another Cancer who needs that reminder. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more profound and meaningful astrological insights.